rating the most popular fragrances from the House of Creed as someone who used to work for the House of Creed. Now I just want to preface this by saying there's no bad blood between me and Creed, right? There's of course I had my reasons for leaving. I just left last month, actually, in December. Yeah, I had my reasons, but one of those reasons being that I wanted to pursue this. I wanted to be able to be my most authentic self for you and just be able to express my opinions genuinely on not only their fragrances, but fragrances in general, and I didn't want to be censored by representing a company, which it makes complete sense, and I respect it completely and I understand, but now I'm able to, Now this is also coming from somebody who, fell into this niche of fragrance 5 or 6 years back and, went through the rabbit hole of YouTube and forums and you name it, and had to go through the people that were being honest and giving me good advice and recommendations, and those who were being a little dishonest just to put some money in their pocket, sort of thing, So now after 5 or 6 years of going through all this, I finally garnered, the experience to know, what works, what performs, what's true, what's not, and what a lot of other people think by working for Creed and in niche luxury fragrance as well. So now I will say most of the fragrances I'm going to be reviewing today are going to be more marketed towards men and unisex fragrances. I'm just going to be completely honest. The fragrances that are marketed towards women from Creed are kind of trash. And I promise I'm not saying that just to be like ratchet or anything. I'm just being completely honest. Even the 95% of women that I was selling to at Creed, they would not buy a women's specific fragrance. They were buying the unisex, sometimes even the masculine or the ones marketed towards men. And then once in a while, there would be like an Aventus for her sale, or like maybe an older woman would come in and want to buy Windflowers because it smells very powdery, But most of the time they were looking towards Silver Mountain Water, Millésime Imperial, even like Aventus Cologne version. So, I'm probably not going to be mentioning any women's fragrances this video. So, but first things first, of course, we have to review Aventus. Now, Aventus, a lot of you will already know my opinion on this, but Aventus, it's just the overhype is unbelievable for this fragrance. I mean, the longevity and performance, I never got my nose on it back in 2016, and when people rave about it, about its formulation being fantastic. But all I know now, and for the past few years, is that it's been pretty upsetting on terms of the longevity and performance. And now I even wear, you can see I'm not really spraying this very often other than to show some friends or people that, want to see and smell it for themselves. But I personally wear Club de Nuit Intense Man from Armaf, just because the longevity and projection is so much better. But yeah, the Creed Aventus, it's what most men that were coming up to the Creed counter for the first time would want to smell because they heard about it online, right? They heard it on YouTube, they heard it on TikTok, Instagram, whatever. They heard other people, other celebrities wearing it, sort of thing. So that's the thing that that was the sole reason they would come up to the Creed counter most of the time. And they would smell it and they would love it, right? They really would. And I don't blame them because, I think it's a great fragrance as well. I think it's a great DNA, right? The only thing is that, first of all, it's men that really love it and women that don't, right? It's sworn by so many men online and on YouTube. Especially in the OG days of YouTube, and maybe it is because of that older variation and formulation, right? But it was sworn by all these different men online that it was just the greatest, most legendary, hands down fragrance of all time. But it's just not, because it's not the woman killer fragrance. It's not the panty dropper fragrance, as a lot of the OG guys would say, but like, it's more of like a boxer dropper sort of thing, right? It's like other men will love to smell this, right? But that's if they can smell it, because the longevity and performance isn't really there. Now, before I even get to that, I will say more men love this, and I think the reason is because, well, I think on the flip side, women don't really like it because there is this, there's the pineapple and apple inside of it, that fruitiness, which is fantastic, and I think it's loved across all genders, right? But there is this smokiness on the bottom, And I didn't know how to put it into words, but I think it's because that smokiness on the bottom is mixing with that fruitiness, and it just makes this weird, it just does this weird thing, especially to the feminine nose. You know, I didn't know how to put it into words. I didn't realize it was the smokiness on the bottom until I heard Melissa Nacional put it into words, which I'm so grateful for, because I didn't know how to describe it. And after I heard her say that, I was like, that's it. That is it perfectly in words. But when I would show this to women at the Creed counter, I'm telling you, the 98% of women did not care for this. They cared for the Aventus Cologne, if I showed that to them right after, or the Silver Mountain water, or the Millésime Impérial, right? But if they smelled Aventus, the original, they were just not happy. Especially if I showed it to them after I showed them Silver Mountain water or Aventus Cologne, and then I would show them this, they would almost look a little offended. I'm not gonna lie, they'd be like, why are you showing me this crap after showing me these things that I already like, you know, and that they really loved. But if a man was coming to purchase for himself, he would really, really opt towards the Aventus. If a woman was shopping for her man, she would not look towards the Aventus. She would look towards something more like Silver Mountain water, like I said, or Millésime Impérial, or something different. But Aventus, yeah, appeals way more to the masculine nose than the feminine nose. And also the longevity and performance just isn't there. I mean, it's coming off very quickly after I put it on. I mean, maybe an hour or two after having it on, I'll be getting some compliments here and there, or men asking me, you know, oh, what are you wearing? Never a woman once in my life while wearing the actual Aventus. Of course, I mean, this bottle, you can see I didn't really spray this one at all, but the other decants or samples or whatever that I've had, or, you know, spraying it at work sort of thing, never once in my life have I gotten a compliment from the original Creed Aventus. It has only been similar DNAs, like Club de Nuit Intense Man from Armaf, or like Mont Blanc Explorer, right? Something that copies that sort of DNA, but never from Creed Aventus. But of course, it is hands down the most popular fragrance from Creed, because it is the most legendary and iconic from them. So that is Creed Aventus. Next up, Silver Mountain water, which is almost the polar opposite of Aventus when it comes to the appeal, right? The feminine nose, I always say it, this is Creed's magnum opus when it comes to the feminine appeal of it, right? There are women that would love to come in and buy this for themselves, and there were the women that would love to come in and buy this for their man, for their husband, for their boyfriend, whatever. And they just, I see it, man. I mean, I say it all the time too. Maybe I just have a more feminine nose. Maybe I'm insecure about it, whatever. But Silver Mountain water is really fantastic. I mean, the green tea just makes it so much different. You know, I would always say, you know, there's not those common heavy hitting citruses coming straight at you like you find in a lot of these cleaner and fresher fragrances, right? There's a lot of, you might see a lot of, you know, bergamot or lemon on top, and it just really gets you, like just immediately gets you in the face with that citrus, that hard hitting citrus. And sometimes people get tired of it. I was getting tired of it. Sometimes I would smell some stuff and I'd be like, this smells like a mosquito spray, a mosquito repellent sort of thing, you know, because it would be so often and generic. But Silver Mountain water, not only does it just smell amazing, but it smells different because it's using that green tea, sort of falling back on that green tea, and I believe it's in the middle notes instead of those overly hitting citruses, you know. So Silver Mountain water is amazing. When I would show this, you know, I would always say, if a couple came up to me while I was working at Creed, you know, the man would come up and be like, yeah, I want to smell Aventus, you know, I've been hearing so much about it. And he, you know, I'd spray it for them, or I'd be like, yeah, go ahead, and they'd spray, go ahead and spray it. And they would smell it. The man would smell it and he'd be like, yes, this is amazing, I need this. And he passes it to his girlfriend or a wife or whatever, and then she would smell it and be like it would be the same face, bro. I'm telling you, it would be the same face like 95% of the time. They're like, you are not getting this sort of thing. And then if I would show her, you know, Aventus Cologne, right? Because, you know, the guy would love it still too, because it's the same DNA. But I would, you know, I'd be like, here, let me, you know, show them Aventus Cologne, a lot more fresher, doesn't have that smokiness. Show that to them. And the guy would be like, yeah, that's good, that's good. and the wife or girlfriend or whatever, they would smell, she would smell it and be like, oh, this is so much better. Like, why would you even think about getting this in comparison, right? But I would also show them Silver Mountain water in comparison with that, right? Silver Mountain water was the thing that would usually, it would go toe to toe with Aventus Cologne. And I think this would usually come out on top. Silver Mountain water, the longevity and performance though, is very upsetting. That's the thing that just makes this not worth the price for the most part. I find some people telling me that it works, you know, a very niche amount of people being like, I think it works really well on my skin, or like, I'll wear it in the cold weather. And I think, you know, I think it performs very well in the, you know, just because it's a cleaner and fresher fragrance, it's gonna be a lot more appropriate in the summer and spring. But winter and fall, I mean, it's a clean and fresh fragrance, so you can wear it all year round, right? And it's never gonna really offend anybody. And I think it is true, some people have said it, and I've contemplated before, but it kind of does pierce through the cold weather as well, without being too offensive or like sharp on the nose, right? Being too cooling of a fragrance in the cold weather. You know, you can never really go wrong with a fresh, clean fragrance at any time, right? So yeah, Silver Mountain water, the longevity and projection, not too great. Yeah, that's Silver Mountain water. Next is the Aventus Cologne, right? So I don't have it, sadly, just have the original Aventus, but the Aventus Cologne, like I said, if I would show that side by side, usually even the man would sort of like it more sometimes, right? It was kind of a 50-50, but the woman 100% of the time almost would be like, Aventus Cologne, why would I ever even think about the original Aventus? Because that smokiness on the bottom just isn't it, man, I'm telling you. Aventus Cologne. From what I remember, they take out the apple top note from the top of Aventus and they replace it with a mandarin orange, which is fantastic. It makes it smell a bit more tropical and just like more clean and fresh. And then they also take out the things on the bottom that make it smoky, along with that ambroxan. And I believe they replace it with a styrax. I feel like I'm at my job for Creed now. But yeah, I believe they replaced the ambroxan and some of those other smoky notes on the bottom with a styrax, and it just makes it a lot more natural. You know, they're taking that ambroxan out, which I believe is like a man-made sort of compound. And yeah, it's a lot more easygoing, a lot more fresh, a lot more clean, a tiny bit tropical maybe. I mean, especially with that pineapple in the middle that it keeps. And it's just gonna garner you so many more compliments. The Aventus Cologne is going to garner you so many more compliments, especially from women, than the original Aventus would, right? And I think it's fantastic, genuinely. I can't speak on the performance and longevity of it. There's nothing really different between it and Aventus that would, you know, cause it to be a longer lasting sort of fragrance. I'm trying to think about, you know, how many hours sort of thing. It's always hard because it's subjective, right? I usually spray my stuff on my clothes, especially if it's a transparent fragrance. But whenever I'm wearing a Creed, I like in general, I like to drive with my windows down. If I'm wearing a Creed, I'm keeping those windows up. I'm keeping the windows up because I do not want that. The fragrance is gonna blow right off me, man. It really is. So that's pretty much, I guess that gives a pretty good example. You know, what does that say about the projection and longevity? I mean, I would say for the majority of Creeds, they don't have a great sillage or projection or longevity to them. But you know, after some hours, if you're meeting up with friends, you know, whatever, and you know, you get some hugs going, whatever, and people would still smell it on you and probably get some compliments, you know, but you're not gonna dominate the room like an Alpha Sigma CEO male or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, because it's not gonna fill a room, and it's not gonna linger in an elevator or whatever sort of metaphor you want to use for that. But yeah, Aventus Cologne is fantastic. Now the next one I want to speak on is Millésime Impérial, which I also sadly do not have. But Millésime Impérial is very attractive and appealing to both men and women. It really is. It was probably almost split perfectly even whether or not I was selling it to a man or a woman. It was probably 50-50 on who I was selling it to, and they were wearing it for themselves, right? So it is a very unisex fragrance. It's very versatile. And it's a very aquatic, marine sort of accord in the middle, and it's very citrusy as well. Very citrus, oceanic sort of vibes with that one. And it's very nice, it's very easygoing, easy to wear sort of thing, but definitely summer, spring sort of vibes, you know, very cooling. It has a nice cooling effect. It's very nice, and it's just very, yeah, like I said, easygoing, easy to wear. The only thing with that one is with the longevity and projection, I've heard that the longevity is there, but the projection is what's upsetting about that one. You know, you're not gonna have a nice scent bubble. You're not gonna have a nice sillage behind you if you're walking somewhere or anything like that. It's not gonna linger anywhere. But on you, it's just gonna be a smaller scent bubble, but it's gonna last a decent amount of time. That's what I've heard. Now, don't be expecting too much, you know, especially with what you've already heard about the other fragrances from, I'm sure, so many other people and from myself, but the fragrance itself is amazing. But yeah, very unisex. It's very eye-catching. People will ask about it a lot, especially if they don't know anything about Creed and they haven't heard of Aventus. It's very eye-catching because it's in that golden bottle nowadays. So people will be like, what's that one right there? What's that one smell like, sort of thing. So yeah, Millésime Impérial is very nice, very appealing to both genders, and I think it's pretty solid. Next up, we've got Green Irish Tweed. Now, Green Irish Tweed is, oh my gosh, it's personally one of my favorites from them, but I'm in the very small percentile of people that actually like Green Irish Tweed. I can't lie. I just think it smells very burly, masculine. I always think of a lumberjack when I smell this. Whenever I smell this, I'm like, I need a full-blown beard to be able to wear this thing, and I need to be able to wear like a red flannel, like a red, black and red buffalo plaid flannel with this thing. It smells like the name, like you would assume from the name. It smells very green, but it's got this. The dry down is fantastic, and I think the dry down is much more mass appealing. But freshly sprayed, it's got this peppermint, I believe it is. I believe it's a peppermint on top that would make it so that whenever somebody would smell it freshly sprayed, they would be like, what is going on right now? People would say it smells like, it smells like their grandpa's house sort of thing, or like their uncle's house. Yeah, it's just like this very piercing, like pepperminty, spearminty sort of thing right away that just like really pierces your nose and is a little offensive at first. And then but when it dries down, it becomes this much more masculine, green sort of fragrance. And I've met some women that really love wearing this for themselves as well. But on terms of appeal, it is the opposite of mass appealing. It's really hard to find people that appreciate Green Irish Tweed. I mean, I can appreciate the overwhelming majority of fragrances from all houses, but this one for some reason is just my kryptonite. It really is. On terms of longevity and projection, I find it lasts a while. You're gonna think I sound ridiculous and like a psychopath, but I do have a black and red buffalo plaid flannel that I spray this on when I wear it, and it lasts on there, you know. It'll be in my, you know, if I wear it and I throw it in my laundry, and then I'm doing the laundry a couple days later, or whenever I'm walking into my closet next to my laundry basket, I'll still smell it, and I'm like, wow. You know, the projection and longevity, I would say, is definitely a step up for what you would expect from Creed. I mean, in general, you would expect something a lot better from the longevity and projection for how much you pay, and that's a luxury niche fragrance house, right? But from what's actually the status quo for Creed on longevity and projection, this is a little bit of a step up. It really is. The longevity is there, but the projection, it's probably a smaller scent bubble, just like Millésime Impérial would be. But yeah, Green Irish Tweed, I really like it. You have to form the opinion for yourself on this one, really. It's very, very subjective, I found. But when I was working for Creed, not too many people were happy when I showed them this. They really weren't, but I think it's amazing in its own ways. I really do. But yeah, Green Irish Tweed. Next up, we've got Royal Oud. Now, Royal Oud is another one that I really like, and I find is pretty split down the middle with people on terms of its appeal. It's this very woody, I mean, it is called Royal Oud, so it's got, but it's I believe it's mostly the cedar wood first, then the sandalwood, and then that oud is underneath those. And those are all on the bottom notes. But it smells very woody, almost a little nutty. But oh man, I just think it's this very masculine old money fragrance. That was old money was like the perfect way to put it in my mind, really. And sometimes when I was working for Creed, I'm not supposed to say this, but I tell people, if I could get a read on the customer, sometimes I'd be like, if they would ask me if they could smell this or for me to spray it or whatever, I'd be like, that one's kind of got like these old money vibes to it, you know what I mean? And they'd be like, I had a lot of people tell me that's the perfect terminology that I would use, or those are the perfect words for this. That smells like old money. And they would, a common theme that people would say would be like, or common scenario, they'd be like, this reminds me of someone that's just like, has old money, and they're just like sitting with a cigar and a glass of whiskey sort of thing. And I think that is almost describes this perfectly, seriously. I think it's also got this smokiness on the bottom from those from the woods as well. Maybe a few other things. I can't remember completely what are the notes for this one. I just know it's mostly those woods on the bottom. But this one, very rare to find a woman who's into this one, really. Royal Oud is definitely more appealing to those people who do have old money, I find. But yeah, I have this one. I've sprayed it quite a bit, but sometimes I'm like, this doesn't seem very appropriate on me. I feel like I've got to be a little bit older, maybe make a little bit more money sort of thing before I start wearing this one. But I really love this one. It's another sort of, not guilty pleasure. I would say Green Irish Tweed is probably my guilty pleasure after finding out how many people don't really like it. But Royal Oud is one that I really do like. It just smells like a statesman, like very, like a politician or something. Seriously, it smells like somebody that is in a place of power would wear this, or somebody who's got some status. You know what I mean? A high status CEO Sigma alpha male, man. Yeah, Royal Oud from Creed. Now, the next fragrance I would love to talk about is Original Santal. Now, Original Santal is a unisex fragrance that I truly believe is pretty underrated and isn't talked about enough when it comes to Creed fragrance. Like I said, it's this unisex fragrance, and it's this very aromatic thing with some woods in there as well, a little oriental as well, and it's got just a hint of sweetness, I think from like a tonka or a vanillin maybe on the bottom. And I think there's some cinnamon on top as well. It's this very warm fragrance. I mean, very nice for the colder seasons, for the colder weather, maybe more towards like a date night sort of thing, but very nice for cold weather, genuinely. The interesting thing that would happen when I would show it to people is that if I was showing it to a woman, 7 times out of 10, the woman would be like, they'd be smelling it, they'd be like, I really like this, but it almost leans a bit more masculine, and I'd be like, yeah, like I would say, yeah, like, it is unisex, and but I personally believe, it does seem a bit more masculine, it's a bit more warm, and it's got those woods and a little bit of cinnamon as well, right? So it leans a little tiny bit more masculine in that way. But then when I would show it to men, 7 times out of 10 for men, or maybe even more, they would smell it and they'd be like, yeah, it smells good, but it just smells more feminine to me. So it was just like both men and women were just saying that each other should wear it sort of thing. So I think it would be great, to have it sort of like in a relationship sort of thing, maybe, for the majority of people. I personally believe maybe the meter is just a tad bit more masculine, in my opinion, because of those woods, because of that cinnamon maybe. But there is that sweetness on the bottom, like I said, and it is a little bit more oriental sort of thing. That's what I get from that. And I found a lot of the time, most people would agree, I wouldn't sell it too much because usually somebody had something else, in front of them that they would like, the Silver Mountain water or Aventus Cologne or whatever. But yeah, Original Santal, very underrated. I find that the longevity was pretty solid with that one. Well, pretty solid in terms of Creed, right? Maybe just a tiny bit of a step up, like I was saying, with like Green Irish Tweed. The projection, the sillage, pretty moderate, I would say. It's whatever. But yeah, Original Santal, I really like that one. Now, sticking in that original theme, we have Original Vetiver. Now, original Vetiver is probably one of the most like true vetiver fragrances that I've smelled that keeps it a much more refined vetiver, right? It does smell, to my knowledge, vetiver is that Indian grass root, right? And it sort of gives off that freshly cut grass sort of vibe, but in a more dressed up, gentlemanly sort of aspect, you know? So I think it's very nice, very gentlemanly. I wouldn't find too many women that would smell it and be like, oh yeah, this is nice, this is what a gentleman would wear. Most of the time they wouldn't even want to really smell it. Maybe they've had some poor experiences with vetivers in the past or something like that. But when I would show it, if it was a woman that was asking to smell it, they weren't too happy about it most of the time. But usually I would say in the more grown crowd of men, more grown men would be like, oh, this is nice, this is very sophisticated sort of thing. It's very sophisticated. I think sophisticated is one of the words that Creed wanted me to use as an adjective with that one, actually. And it's true, it is a bit more sophisticated, it's a bit more grown and gentlemanly like. So yeah, original vetiver. I think the longevity and projection for that one was a little step up from the other things as well. Yeah, definitely actually a bit step up from those things. But in terms of like mass appeal, definitely not there. I never really opted to wear it. It wasn't my favorite, so that's just my opinion on original vetiver. Now I'm going to talk about the Vikings. There's Viking, and then there's also Viking Cologne, right? The red bottle is Viking, the orange bottle is Viking Cologne. And both of these, like I said, not trying to be ratchet with these, but I hate them both. I really do. They're both trash in my opinion. And the overwhelming majority, 99% truthfully, of people did not like them and would look offended if I showed it to them. I mean, even with the dry down of those fragrances, it is still just gonna be so overpowering and headache inducing, and the citrus is just gonna be way too much, like to that mosquito repellent sort of level that I was mentioning earlier with some citrus fragrances. Oh, but man, and I'm just talking about the dry down. If I were to freshly spray that in front of somebody, if they were asking to smell it, I would take the bottle, I would be behind the counter, and I would have the blotter card, and I would like try to spray it like almost like towards the floor sort of thing behind the counter, so it wouldn't get up into the air, because then other people that were having an experience with different fragrances, it would sort of ruin their experience for them, because they would smell it and they'd be like giving the side eye sort of thing, like what is that? What's going on over there sort of thing. And then the people that were asking to smell it, yeah, 99% of them were just like, yeah, I shouldn't have asked about that one. And they would hand me the blotter card right back, right? It's funny, most of the time they would just keep holding on to the blotter cards and they'd walk away with them and be like, I don't know what to do with these sort of thing. But they would, when I would pass them the Viking or the Viking Cologne card, right? They'd smell it and they'd be like, yikes, and they'd give it back to me, or they'd put it down on the counter sort of thing. They're like, and they would slide it away. And I would pick it up right for them and put it in my pocket, because I understood, I really did. And I was like, I don't want this to ruin their experience and mix with any other of their cards or fragrances as well. So yeah, the Viking series, it's just not it. It's kind of trash. Next, we've got Virgin Island water. Not to be confused with Silver Mountain water, because they are usually displayed right next to each other on Creed counters, and then they've also have gotten, you know, a 3-word title with water in the end, right? Now, Virgin Island water is this very tropical pina colada sort of fragrance, right? I think pina colada almost, you know, captures it perfectly. And it's a very fun fragrance. It really is. It's a very refreshing, fun fragrance. But a lot of the time when people would smell it, they'd be like, oh wow, like I would tell them like, it's very pina colada-esque, which I also think I wasn't really supposed to say, but I was just being honest with people, man. And seriously, I can't help it. I would show it to them and they'd be like, wow, no, you're right. It is very pina colada, like in that realm of pina colada. And they'd be like that smells cool and all, but I just don't think I would want to wear it. And I would understand, because I'm like, I would joke around sometimes and be like, yeah, like, you know, I like how it smells. It smells very fun, but I don't know if I would want to wear it. I don't know if I would, because then maybe some people are just going to be thinking that I spilled my pina colada on myself and that I'm tipsy and clumsy right now or something like that, you know? I think it's a very fun fragrance. I've heard that it mixes well with the skin of men. interestingly enough. Yeah, the skin of men, I've heard that it mixes very well with. And there were some people that would wear it, that when I would smell them, I'd be like, yeah, it's Virgin Island water, but it smells a lot more, not tolerable, not that it was intolerable to begin with, but yeah, it smells a bit more appropriate on them, you know, and it usually was other men. And I feel like it was funny because as a tropical pina colada sort of fragrance, you'd expect more women to wear it. But there were those women, it was more women than men that would fall in love with it, sort of thing. That's what I found. But yeah, Virgin Island water. Now the last Creed fragrance I'm going to be touching on is Bois Du Portugal. Now Bois Du Portugal is very, it's this very gentleman-like fragrance, kind of like original Vetiver, which funnily enough, there is Vetiver in the bottom of it. I believe it's a Vetiver, sandalwood, and a cedarwood on the bottom of it. And then there's like a lavender in the middle, and then I think just a simple bergamot, a sort of blend on top as well, for just a tiny bit of citrus on top. But yeah, it's this very gentleman-like sort of fragrance. Now I've met, it's usually towards an older crowd that likes to wear that one, you know, more middle-aged and above, I would find, that really sort of took more towards that one, or sort of dressed the part for it, you know, just a bit older. You know, never really met anybody in the younger crowd or, yeah, more youthful crowd that was super in love with it or anything like that. I thought it was decent, just sort of more solid sort of thing. I never wore it. I never really wanted to wear it. But it had its thing to it, you know, it had that gentleman thing. And, you know, which I think is funny because I'm pretty sure it's marketed as a more masculine fragrance. It's marketed towards men, I believe. But there were some older women that really took to it and would buy it or would wear it, you know, or I'd see people on Instagram wear it. And it was funny because a lot of people coming in that would ask about it, which there weren't too many, but the majority of people asking about it specifically would be like, I heard a woman on Instagram speaking about it. I'm not sure who they were, I would ask, but they would be like, I don't know. But yeah, I guess there were some women that were very popular on Instagram that were raving about it for themselves. But when they would smell it in person, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's definitely not for me, sort of thing. It'd be like, it definitely smells a bit more masculine, right? And I think it is because of those woods on the bottom. It's very aromatic as well, but it's just those woods and the vetiver, and you know, just makes it a bit more earthy and sophisticated in a woodsy sort of aspect. But yeah, that one definitely wasn't too popular on terms of sales, but it seems to be a very popular one in terms of Creed overall and in general. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want to hear more stuff about fragrance or anything, or if you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe, hit the bell icon, whatever, and like the video. Feel free to drop me any comments on anything that I've talked about in this video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment as well. You can also feel free to reach out to me on Instagram if you want to talk about anything about more, a bit more in depth, or have any questions or anything like that. Feel free, I'll leave that down in the description. But yeah, hope you guys have a good one. God bless.